Who am I? Well, I'm Iris Lundy. I am a mother, a grandmother, a wife, a friend, sister, daughter, hopefully kind person, and I'm a nurse by background. Yeah. My childhood. I grew up in the coolest little place called Wellyville. So right now where we're sitting at is in Suffolk. Wellyville's a little ways out, probably about 20-25 minutes from where we are. And it's very country, it's very peaceful. Where we lived in a house across from a field. And we would go out and you could play baseball over there, football over there, a little bit down the ways with a basketball court. We would play that. I could hang out with my friends. My childhood was pretty cool. On the weekends, well, really weekdays, it didn't matter. When my dad, we had a garden, and so we worked the garden as a family. But I loved that because that was something I got to do with my dad, which was pretty cool, was working in the garden. My grandparents had livestock, so you know what that was like. My uncle who lived next door, he raised all the corn, so we had that. You know, back in the day, it was nothing for us to be in the country driving and we'd see a corn patch and we'd be like, oh, we would say, open up the boot, which is the trunk for those who don't know. And we'd throw all this corn in there and then we'd come back home and cook it. We'd have cookout, some of the best fish fries. We'd get crabs, bushels of crabs, and sit down and just eat, play cards, spades. You know, it was just a good life. It really was. My childhood was great. Oh wow. I just loved hanging out with my parents. My parents they met when they were young. So my mom was 12, my dad was 13, and they stayed together until my mom passed at the age of 49 from a stroke. They embodied what family was like, right? They weren't perfect by any means. None of us were. I mean, we had our fights like everyone else, but we were family. And you did everything for family, right? Somebody don't have something to eat, you provide it. Somebody needs a ride somewhere, you're there to take them. That's what family is. And I love just sitting and playing cards with my family and watching the stories. So my dad used to work day shift at the shipyard, but then when he went to evening shift, he got hooked on the soaps. Me, him, and my mom would sit and watch the soaps. So we would have to record them, and then we would sit and we would be watching the recorded ones. And then, see my dad kind of crying a little bit on these stories. I mean, that was just like funny to me, but it was, that was great for us. And my dad, he would bring me and my brothers to the table, and we would have to read to him. And this was almost every day. My dad was determined we were going to have an education. He did not graduate from high school, but he was determined that we were going to have an education. And my mom and my dad used to always tell me, they'd be like, you're the one who will graduate from college. You're going to go. And so when I didn't go to college initially right out of high school, they probably had some doubts. I eventually made it, but not right out of high school. The biggest impact in my life, oh my gosh, you know, losing my parents. Huge. You don't know how much you need your parents until they're gone. And even as an adult, I think you find that you need them even more. So I was pregnant with my last child when my mom passed away. She died of a stroke at the age of 49, and that was horrible. And my dad died of cardiac disease almost 15 years later, and but still very difficult. So traversing this life without them and not being able to share some of those joys and get their wisdom, even though I still hear their voice, you know, I still want to, I'd love to be able to sit and have a conversation with them about my life, the ups, the downs, the good, the bad, and all of that. I would love for them to see their children, and their grandchildren, their great-grands. I mean, that would be so amazing. I think the other large challenge was, getting cancer and walking that journey. But I had great people who walked it with me. I had a very supportive work community. I worked with Centera, and they were so supportive as I went through my journey, which was great. My husband, my children, my church family, everyone was really good, but they were probably two hard things. And I guess maybe one other one was when we had a house fire. Our house burned completely down. And it was the day after my grandson, my first grandchild, was born. We're up at the hospital, and the house is burned. But, even through all that, God saw us through it. And again, it just made me who I am today. The things I fight for today, the things that I'm passionate about today, are those things that, were so impactful in my life growing up. And I can't say I'd change anything. I just know that it made me who I am. Well, I am a colon cancer survivor. I only needed to have surgery. I had about 1 foot of my colon removed, and then I had to go through a series of tests and things for years just to make sure that I was in remission, and I am thankful for that. That was interesting because I didn't know I had cancer. I was at this meeting, and I was repeating something that my boss had already said. She's like, Iris, I just said that. And I was like, oh, I'm still having this head problem. Not really, I was kind of clueless. And so there's a neurologist who's sitting in the meeting now. Mind you, I had colon cancer. We're talking about my brain right now. And so he says, Iris, come and see me when we get home. I'm going to help you get better. I said, great. So I had been having these bouts of dizziness, but I had gotten significantly worse to the point where I could only take 2 or 3 steps without getting, really tired. I'm like using my hand to walk against the halls, this kind of thing. I mean, it was just crazy for me. So I go and I meet with him, and he says, you know what? You've got like this, I think it's a pseudoaneurysm or something like that. But anyway, I had this increased intracranial pressure. And so I needed to have a spinal tap to have some of that removed. They did that. He called me. He said, you know what? You're going to be okay. So I said, okay. Not long after that, he calls me and he says, your hemoglobin and hematocrit is incredibly low. You got to go to the hospital right now. I was like, oh, Lord. So then I had to call somebody and say, can you take me to the hospital? So they take me to the hospital. I do these infusions. They still don't know that I have cancer yet. So we're going through this. I've had infusions at the hospital. I've been back and forth. I've went to the infusion center. I've had all the stuff that they need to give me. And so then I end up getting a new provider, and he says, I'm going to find out why you're sick like this, because my other provider was not hearing me. And I need you to hear that. My provider was not listening to me about what was going on with my body. And so I end up with this new physician, and he's like, we need to do a colonoscopy. I go and I see this guy, and I wake up and he's like, you have cancer. And I'm like, cancer? He's like, yeah, you got cancer. I was like, and I'm telling you, that kind of rocked my world because it was not what I was expecting to hear. But we go on that journey. I have the surgery, and I have this incredible friend. She went with me to every single appointment for 3 straight years. I mean, that is friendship. And so I'll never forget her for that. And so, I mean, it was crazy because you don't know sometimes if you're going to live or die. Your emotions are up and down. You believe in God, but you're still scared. Your children are scared, and you're trying to figure out, how do you let them know you're going to be okay when you don't even know if you're going to be okay? So it was really a traumatic time. And this is a time that I don't have my parents, right? And so it was just a little crazy. But again, God brought me through it. A life lesson would be, enjoy life right now, every single moment, right? Don't get hung up on the past. Don't get hung up on things that have even happened today, because look, we've had bad moments, not a bad life. And there may have been many bad moments, but I've had a good life. And I try to enjoy that with my children, my grandchildren, my husband, my friends. I work a lot, but I can tell you, I enjoy life a lot also. Seasoned women, look, you know your body better than anyone. As you're listening to yourself, follow up on that. Get the help you need. And if you don't know how to, reach out to someone. Get a partner who's accountable with you, that keeps you straight on getting your annual examinations. And even when someone says, oh, you know what, you're old, it's just because you're old. No, because we still have a lot of life left to live. So don't buy into that. Seek the care you need, get the help you need, and then live life to the fullest on your terms, right? You do you to the best of your ability. You cannot get a better life than that. Some people might think that's hard. That's not hard. That was good living for me. And it helps me have empathy and love and kindness for other people. I would not trade my childhood for anything. Yeah. So it was good.